been recorded in the other King's Head pub,
Near the
somewhere
Barbican.
near the Barbican, just after the great Lloyds Bank tournament, ladies tournament, in which Jonathan Speelman did not take part. But as he's the only one who's prepared to talk, we're going to have to make do with him. And he's going to show us one of his old masters. Okay, let's see it.
So this is my game with Vic Knox, and it was game round 10 in the British Championship, and I was quite pleased with it afterwards. So it's not a fantastic game, it's okay. 1c4. Well, Vic was playing the Slav defence against 1d4, and he plays 1e5 against 1e2 to e4. I therefore decided to play 1c4, and if he aimed to reach a Slav, as he did with 1c6, I crossed his intentions with 2e4, thus reaching a Caro-Kann, which is not a bad opening. Well, this isn't a bad line for white, and I thought it would throw Vic a little, and in the opening one has three possible aims. You can aim to reach a good position, that's very nice, or a position that you know and your opponent doesn't, that's even better, or one that you like and your opponent doesn't. And if you can make a mixture of the last two, the latter two aims, then the first one isn't so important. So, I reached quite a good position as well, because he played e5. I think d5 is probably a better move, and e6 is also possible.
What would you have done against d5, Jonathan?
Well, I would either have taken twice, or taken once with the e-pawn and then played d4, reaching the Botvinnik-Panov attack of the Caro-Kann.
Which would you have done then? Would you have taken twice?
Don't know. I would.
Taking twice is rather weak.
Taking twice is playable. It's not great and not terrible. It depends how I was feeling. Excuse me. Yes. So he played e5, which pleased me. Knight f3. Well, now f5 is a nice bad move which black can play when he wants to make a mess. But Vic Knox, of course, played d6, d4. Well, my first ever win against a Grandmaster was against Bent Larsen in Lone Pine in either 1978 or 79, I think 78. And in this position he played bishop g4. It's not a bad move. Vic played knight d7, going for King's Indian. Knight c3, g6. Well, here I played bishop e2. Given my next move, which is going to be d5, maybe I should play a pass move here. Like, well, I can play g3 anyway if I want to, and that might be more sensible, because I played bishop e2, bishop g7, and then d5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 d5, I suppose. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, it's 7 d5. I played this move before against Andrew Whiteley. It's not a bad move. On the other hand, I'd rather like to finisher to my king's bishop in connection with it. Yeah, the audience can move in if it wants.
Unless it gets paid this time.
And yes, the audience is expressing dissatisfaction with union rates. And
The audience hasn't got a union yet.
not yet. No, it will have soon. And d5 isn't a bad move.
Just as well for these ad hoc entrepreneurs, huh?
Indeed, yeah.
All the unions.
Yeah. So black played c5. It's not a bad move. Bishop e3. Knight f6.
By the way, why would you prefer to have your bishop fianchettoed in this sort of situation rather than on e2?
Because then I can play for f4 as white. Whereas here it isn't such a good plan. Knight d2. h5. That's not a bad move, because if black castles and g4 is quite good with the centre sharp. Now I played a3. h3 is an alternative. Well, black played a6. I think he did, or maybe, no, a6 he played. I was somewhat concerned about knight g4, bishop takes g4, pawn takes g4, queen takes g4, knight f6, queen e2, knight g4. Getting both bishops for the pair of knights. Anyway, b4, b6, h3, stopping knight g4. Now black played bishop h6, and h4 would be a better move. I glanced at this with Jonathan Masterley, immediately said h4, which is correct. After which, black has a reasonable position, might be a little bit worse. It's not clear whether b4 is a good or a bad thing for me. I might even want to castle queenside later and play b5 and close the queenside prior to an attack, but it's not talk clear if it's good or not. No, h4, sorry, bishop h6, knight f1. Sorry, I took an h6. I could also play knight f1. Bishop takes h6 is just to misplace the rook. I reckon it's on a bad square. Rook takes h6, knight f1, king f8, knight e3, king g7. Well, sometime he should have played h4. I now play h4, and I think white has a clear advantage now. h4 is nice because I can play for f4, and I control lots of black squares. I assess this position is very slightly better for white at the moment. Does Grandmaster Christiansen agree?
What do you think of this position, Grandmaster Christiansen?
I have to concur with Grandmaster Speelman.
The Grandmasters always agree, that's why they're Grandmasters.
I'm surprised an American knows such long words. That's only 2-bit actually, still. Knight f8, well, you should get his rook into a decent square, g3. Well, what I'm doing is pretending I'm going to play f4. I'm not sure if I was or not, but I thought that the pretense might have some beneficial effect, because it's quite a nice move. And he now played queen e8. Now, queen e8 is not such a good move because it allows me to take on c5. Previously, I was worried about taking on c5 because of the problem of queen to a5 from black. And I didn't want to play rook to b1. When I played g3, I considered rook b1, but I was worried about pawn takes b4, pawn takes b4, a5, aiming for the c5 square for a horse. That may or may not be good, but I was perturbed by this possibility. I therefore played g3 as a semi-waiting move to see what black would do to make his position worse, and he played queen e8. It's quite true. After which I took on c5, b takes c5, b takes c5, rook b1. Well, now I've got the b file, and I think I'm better. Black played knight h7, which is knight f2 h7, which is a move I don't think is very good, inasmuch as it traps a rook on h6. Yeah, the crowd is surprised by this. And now I played king f1. I had a long think. I can't play queen a4 because he takes an a4, and I don't really want to move my queen to, say, b3 because of knight g4, which is a nuisance. It's almost justified all his previous ridiculous moves. I thought of king d2, king f1, rook b2, rook b3, a4 even. And I thought king f1 was quite a good non-committal move. As we'll see, it does mean that bishop h3 check is on when my queen is on prise. Well, he was helpful. He played knight g8, which is a bad move. Though it's quite hard to see what he should do. He's quite a lot worse now because the b file's in my control. I have a space advantage. Knight f to g8. What allows queen a4 exclam. Now I have a big advantage because if the queens come off, then the b file is a disaster for black. Interesting is bishop d7, queen a5, f5, queen c. What is it? Bishop d7, queen a5, f5, rook b7. Now f4, pawn takes f4, pawn takes f4, knight g2. I'm moving the bits in the board now, which I wasn't doing earlier because I couldn't remember it properly. Then my queen on a5 protects knight in c3, which is a very important point. Overlooked by both players until somewhat too late, but it happens to be in my favour. After rook b7, he's in great trouble. I almost expleted as an alternative expression, inasmuch as I'm threatened to take twice on f5 and d6 is loose. In fact, he's lost here. So, bishop d7 is very bad. He played queen d8, queen c6. Now, bishop d7 is probably best, since if queen takes d6, bishop h3 check. This is disadvantage of king f1. You can say, ooh, ooh. That's the great Basman's comment on the situation. However, black decided, well, if rook a7, rook b8 is very good for white. Instead he played the splendid move g5, a move which, yuck is the correct comment. So I gave up my queen for the third time. This was the third time in the British Championship, and I'm afraid I found it quite irresistible. Queen takes a8.
I thought you were going to take the bishop.
Bishop h3 check. Rook takes h3. Queen takes a8. Knight f5 check. But this position is exceedingly good for white. This is the first queen sacrifice of the 3 queen sacrifices, one was semi-sound, one was forced, The first one was forced and winning, the second one was semi-sound, and the third one is good and winning. King G6, perhaps the only move. I hadn't considered it very seriously, but you don't really have to think about black's moves here, you just look at the position. Rook to B6. No hurry to take that rook on H6, it's a stupid piece. Knight F6, King G2. Well, maybe you should play rook H8 here. I must say, I don't like his position. It's really awful. If he takes an E4, knight takes E4, knight takes E4, king takes F5, bishop D3, sets up a discovered check out of which I suspect I might derive some benefit. Squill. I think he should play rook H8 here, but he took an H4. Takes an H4, and I decided to sacrifice my knight on F5 for his rook. Slightly painful decision, actually. Knight takes rook, knight takes knight, rook takes pawn. Well, this is nice because my rook is defending the e-pawn. What he wants to do is to get his queen active at the cost of a pawn or so. But if say queen D8, rook takes A6, queen B8, the knight B5 keeps complete control, and he's splatted. What he played was also pretty horrible. Knight G4, bishop takes G4, pawn takes G4, rook takes D6. Well, now he ought to play king G5, but after rook B6 I have complete control. Instead he tried queen B8, rook takes G4 check, king H5. Well, I could move my rook to H4 check and I'd be winning, but I played rook takes F6, which is even nicer. Applause from the crowd.
Brilliant, yes.
King takes G4, rook F5. Well, later analysis has shown me that I'd be winning this position without the knight. However, it's nice to have the knight, and black resigned here, because there's no defence to the threat of...
If you didn't have the knight and you played queen
B2. I go D6, queen C2, D7, queen takes E4 check, F3 check, no. Yeah. Without the knight I'd also be winning. But he's just got no defence to the combined threats of F3 mate and knight to D1 to E3 mate. So that was that.
Thanks, superb, Kosh, and I think we all enjoyed it, especially the crowd, who I had to pay quite a lot to listen to this game.